Okay, good morning, everybody, and happy Leap Day, too. Welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic. My name is Bill Lester. I'm with University of Florida IFAS Extension Service here in Hernando County. And joining me today are my two regular co-hosts, Colby Pitts, who's the Hernando County Florida Friendly Landscape Coordinator, and also one of our master gardeners, Bernie, to answer all the difficult questions, because I'm just going to pass the tough ones over to him. I've gotten so many email questions recently that I got, Bernie, you should like this. I got a number of different palm email questions this past week. Um, One of them came from a neighboring county, and they said that they were told to send pictures to me because they think it's lethal bronzing on palm trees. And I'm thinking, well, why didn't your county's office handle this one? That's okay. I can answer it. And I got a question about a Canary Island date palm from a gentleman who said he found my blog online and was afraid that it had fusarium. And I looked at it and it was kind of, I may even try to dig up the picture and share it with everybody here this morning. In one way, it looks like it has fusarium because he pulled a few leaves off and down one side, totally brown. All the leaflets on the other side are still totally green. But it's not on the bottommost leaves, it's on the middle leaves. So that was a little confusing. I said, well, to say for sure what disease your tree has, you really have to send a sample off for testing, send them a link to the University of Florida Plant Disease Clinic and everything. And he emailed me back, thank you so much. But I live in Los Angeles. Can you tell me where I can send it for testing here? So I'm getting questions from all across the country. So springtime, it can be very, very busy for us. But hey, since today is Leap Day, don't want to forget to mention, if you would like to join us here online, if you'd like to actually have a little box and join in the conversation, ask a question, help answer a question, if you want to try, you're more than welcome to. If you email Teresa, whose email is rolling across the very bottom of the screen here, she will email you a link that if you click on it, you'll be able to join us live. So what you need is some kind of camera with your computer. Laptops have cameras in them. I have a webcam. I think we all have decent webcams. And you obviously have to have a microphone so that when you talk, we can hear you. But if you want us to send you the link to join us live, since it is Leap Day, just shoot Teresa an email and we'll let you join us here live. And as always, if anybody has any questions and you're just watching us, go ahead and put them in the chat, put them in the comments, and we will see them and we'll do our very best to answer them. Even if you're from LA, that's fine. Neighboring county, that's fine. Just ask your question.
One thing that's always scared me about moving somewhere else is it's like I don't know any Los Angeles plants. I don't know any Washington State plants. I know Florida stuff. It's kind of that's always been something I've been worried about. It's like I move somewhere, I'm gonna be out of work.
Yeah, because I even told him, I said, I'm not sure what diseases are present in California for Canary Island date palms. Is fusarium a problem there? I don't know. Do they have a different disease that we don't have? I don't know.
Yeah, I had a woman in Denver that was collecting tropical plants or semi-tropical plants, and nobody in Denver was really familiar with growing them. So she just looked up extension offices in Florida. Our number came up first, and over a period of years, I'll bet I talked to her 4 or 5 times a year for several years. And then the COVID thing fouled everything up. But I used to hear from her. She'd say, "I've got an Exora, and I'm having this problem, and nobody here knows what to do. What should I do?" And well, do they sell Daconel in Colorado? Yeah, try that. And next time she said, "I'd fixed my Exora, but now I've got a," and it just went on and on. And So I can understand if somebody from up north called and wanted help with northern plants, I wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah.
In fact, if you moved to northern Florida, we probably would not be good. So
Yeah,
it's amazing how localized plants are.
Yeah.
yeah, and how much the climate can vary in a pretty short distance. I mean, like we have the microclimates where it's like, 100 yards that way it may be different, it may be too much, but even in a bigger, more macro scale, it changes really fast. And just because, like, I mean, all things considered, Florida's a pretty big state, so there's a vastly different climate in, let's say, South Florida versus the Panhandle.
Totally different growing seasons. There's so many things that grow in Florida, but if you're growing it in Homestead, you're following a totally different calendar than if you live up in the Panhandle.
Mm-hmm. Talking about growing plants in places where, like weird places they wouldn't normally be. I watched the movie Dune for the first time a few days ago, and in that movie they're on a desert planet. They're on this planet called Arrakis, and on Arrakis they're growing date palms. It's a desert, and he's like, yeah, they wouldn't be alive if I didn't come out here and dump enough water for 50 men every day on them or something like that. I was like, that's crazy. I'm sure like Dave was just like, oh yeah, they're growing palm trees in the desert. That's interesting. Like to most people, I was thinking like, you could grow a date palm in Hernando County. That's crazy.
But Sylvester palms or the date palms don't produce dates here in Florida.
Really?
They flower, but they don't make dates.
I thought date palms, they're what's the dioecious, right? They're gendered. I think, is that the word?
Yeah, and I don't think they are. They don't make dates here because of the environment, not because of the biology of date palms. But if you grow the same palms in California, they can flower and make dates there.
I wonder, that's crazy because you would think that Florida would be better, more suitable. Because I thought, like, if you're producing fruit, typically I know it's like it needs the resources to be able to produce a fruit, extra water, extra, nutrients, X, Y, Z. I wouldn't imagine that California would be a better place for producing fruit than Florida. That's interesting. I'm gonna have to look. I'm gonna have to look into that.
Desert environment. So even though they tolerate our environment just fine and grow very well here, they don't. They, for some unusual reason, they don't fruit. They don't produce edible fruits here.
I don't even know where are date palms native to.
Desert Middle East, I believe.
Huh. Africa, Middle East, South Asia. Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Learn something new every day.
California, although their temperature is about the same as ours, their humidity pattern is totally different.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of plants that respond to humidity in different ways, and so you can grow a lot of things in the Mediterranean climate of Southern California that do not work here, and yet we're basically the same temperature range.
Yeah, and you can't always go by growing zones because you might be looking at a plant and wanting to order it online from a catalog, and it says, does great in zone 9. Is that Florida zone 9 or California zone 9? Because zone 9 goes all the way through from east to west, and the weather over the entire year is very different here in Florida than it is in California. So,
yeah, it's
winter temperature is not the only deciding factor on whether a plant's going to do well here or not.
Yeah, well, I mean, we talk about it a lot that your the plant hardiness zones are kind of different throughout the country, like a California zone 9. But just like to make it kind of real world, it looks right here that we are in like a very similar growing zone to San Francisco, California, which is a wildly different climate.
So when it comes to the average low temperature, we're very similar to them. In a lot of other growing condition ways, we're very, very different from them.
Well, look at the big trees in the Washington, Oregon area that sit there and because they're not really getting serious freezes, but they're getting cool weather and a lot of moisture being blown on them all the time. They end up being 300 feet tall, and you can't even grow those things here more than a year or two, and they die.
Yeah.
So, and you can't grow them in Indiana. You can't grow them in uh, any of the states between on this side of the continent. But once you get out in that particular strange little environment, things grow totally different, and it's amazing.
Yeah, that west side of Washington, Oregon, they're all like 8A, 8B, which is to me is a higher up zone than I would think.
Well, I'm sure the Pacific moderates the cold temperatures out there quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Your audio.
Oh man, yeah, I think my computer might be bugging a little bit. My camera.
Yeah, your camera seems to be hanging up a little bit. But that's okay because my camera now flickers every once in a while. I think it's time for a new webcam. I think I wore mine out.
I think what that was, that interactive map I was using was a little resource intensive because now that I've closed it, it's not doing it anymore. Yeah, no, I got one of those like mirrorless big cameras with a little dongle plugged in. Try to look nice for everybody.
Yeah, I look like I'm in a cave today because I forgot to recharge my batteries for my lights. So technical problems pop up.
Yeah, no, I'm in Central America with my red-eyed tree frog.
So, hey, everybody, if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the comments and go ahead and ask away. And if you would like to join us live here on screen, on the internet, just send Teresa an email. That is her email address scrolling along the bottom there, and she will send you a link for you to come in and join us. And that way because we tend to have a lot of the same people each week. And the nice thing is every week, at least one or two brand new people will ask a question whose names I don't recognize. But there's a lot of names on here that I recognize, and we never know what anybody looks like or see anybody. So we try to do this every once in a while, give you the chance, if you have a microphone and a camera, to jump on and join us with your own little box here on screen.
Come in, just ask a question. We can have a little discussion about it. It's not like you have to. We're not roping you in for the whole hour. You don't have to stay here the whole time.
We're not going to pass off the hard questions to you. We do that to Bernie. So it looks like your camera settled down. It must have been the data.
Yeah, I think that's my good old government issued laptop working its hardest to keep me in the game.
Memory a while back, they had to come in and crack it and put another chip into it to add more memory to it. So
no, I think I'm up for a new one soon, and I'm hoping that they're going to do right by me and give me something with some power.
The funny thing about these cameras, if you remember, TV stations would have these things on a big mammoth pedestal to roll around, and they were, the size of 4 suitcases and really big. And now the camera in your cell phone is 50 times better than the best TV camera that we have. Yeah, those things are fantastic. If you had told an engineer that you were going to have 20 pixels carrying it around in your pocket, they'd have thought you were crazy.
Yeah.
20 pixels 20 years ago would have weighed 2,000 pounds.
It's really crazy because you think, like, resolution wise, those, even in like the 90s when broadcast TV was, now we're getting a little off topic, broadcast TV was it wasn't HD, you're in 480p or whatever. This shoots like raw 4K where it's a massive amount of data comparatively, but now it weighs nothing and I carry it around without thinking about it.
Yeah.
camera, computer technology, all that stuff's crazy.
But hey, all this technology gives us the opportunity to reach more people and get involved in ways that we never could have before. We would have had to talk somebody into giving us a PBS show, and we'd have to drive to the studios, and they have to build a studio, and somebody's paying somebody to run the cameras, and it was just almost impossible to do this. Now, I even priced out a new webcam. They're like $20. So, computer monitor, $20 webcam. The system that we use, StreamYard, I have to pay for, but it's very reasonably priced and it works very well. So,
And you've got these plant identification websites where you take a picture with your cell phone.
Oh yeah, those are great.
And it's amazing. They can identify the majority of plants. We've had people come in with some pretty obscure things, and it pops back. We had one not too long ago. Not only did they tell us it was an olive, but they told us the variety of the olive, and that's getting pretty amazing when they can do that. So
I took a while back. I decided I was like, I wonder. Yeah, I took something I knew what it was, and I was like, I'm gonna fill out a key. I'm gonna do the key on this and see how long it takes me, and then I'm gonna take a picture of it and see how long that takes me. And it was like so much longer. I mean, like I know it's like, and I know the terms. If you're just like a normal person who wouldn't know, what was a phyllotax, you don't know about any of that stuff. You have to like figure out what all that means, and that might take you 30 minutes just to get through a key. But it takes, 5 seconds to snap a photo and pop it on the website, and there you go.
Yeah, those apps are not perfect yet, but they're getting pretty close. They're pretty darn accurate. But remember, they're not 100% accurate. So I've seen some people use it on a certain plant, and the answer that they get is just really off the wall.
Yeah, and that's I think if you really have to like double check them.
Yeah.
Because if it'll spit, a lot of them will spit you out. Oh, it's this, and then it's with a degree of certainty, and then it's the next level. Like look at the pictures that they have up to, and really like compare them. Because more often than not, my experience with those plant ID apps is that it may not be the first one, but if you just look at what you have and look at what the pictures they're showing you, like they will eventually you'll find it, and it'll be right. It may not be their first suggestion, but also take multiple pictures. Multiple pictures with those things work so much better, and especially if you can get different parts. I know that there's one of them. I'll have to look up which one it is, but it's like you take the picture, and it's like this is the leaves, this is the stem. If there's flowers, this is the flower, this is a fruit, and it compiles all that information together. It lets you like categorize the pictures you put in, so it's not trying to link up your picture of leaves to a fruit of some other kind. It's not confusing it when it knows what it's looking for in each picture. I'm gonna look that up because I've had good experiences with that one.
Okay, we have a comment from longtime viewer and also previous co-host Lily Browning. Good morning, Lily. Hey, if you want to come on here, just shoot Teresa an email and she'll send you the link. She has it. Lily says, I just learned that you can conceivably, but not easily, grow tea leaves in Florida. That is true. And that black, green, and oolong tea is from the same plant, Camellia sinensis. That is true also. It's just different varieties. Green tea is the younger leaves. So I'm not a tea expert on even specific varieties of drinkable tea. But I know that University of Florida researchers are looking at, can it be grown here in Florida? Can it be done so commercially? Maybe you can grow certain types and other types you really can't grow here. They looked at tea. They're looking at coffee. Coffee can be grown potentially here. I don't know how difficult or worthwhile that would be in somebody's just backyard garden. And it probably doesn't do well enough for you to plan on getting a 500-acre coffee or tea farm or plantation or whatever here in Central Florida. But they are looking at it. And there are varieties and types that are going to do well in different parts of Florida. So they're always, and it's based in how long the leaves ferment. Okay. I like green tea myself. Very good source of antioxidants. Very healthy for you. I like green tea, iced tea. If anybody's wondering.
I'm not a big tea person. I've gotten where, sometimes I'll just get like an unsweet tea for no reason. It's not very Sumter County, Florida of me, but I don't know, man. Sometimes I just that's what hits.
Sweet tea. A lot of times, sweet tea is just so sweet.
It's best when it's like a half and half. I like the half sweet tea.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that do that. Lily's on the road. She must be heading off to South Florida to sample the tea and the coffee, I guess. But something else that University of Florida has ongoing research on is growing vanilla orchids, which is where we get vanilla from. Vanilla comes from a seed pod on an orchid vine. And it's a vine. It has to grow 20, 30, 40 feet up into a tree or along a trellis or fence before it flowers. You have to hand pollinate the flower because I believe the native natural pollinator isn't even here in the US. So you have to hand pollinate it to get better pollination. And then when it forms the seed pods, that's vanilla seed pods. You can actually buy them at a grocery store. And they're looking at all the different varieties and types of that, most of which don't even have names. It's funny, there's certain plants that are just vanilla orchids. There's a whole bunch of different varieties, not really well understood. Barbados cherry, it is what it is. Are there some strains or varieties, or maybe Bernie has one in his backyard that has sweeter berries, maybe mine are tartar, a lot of genetic variation, but nobody's really separated out or named the varieties. Look at that. Teresa found some information on tea growing in the Florida home landscape. Are we going to have to try that, Bernie? Bernie, do you like tea?
Well, I'm not a big tea drinker. I like iced tea, and I like that sweet tea that's too sweet. So, but I'm getting to the point where I'm not supposed to drink all those high sugared beverages anymore. So, I do the half and half thing a lot. And if you notice that the restaurants have gotten really good about doing half and half anymore, 5 years ago, they got nasty when you asked for something out of line, and now it's so common that they put it down and don't say much.
I think a lot of those restaurants even have it like pre-mixed. It's like, is it even half and half at that point? It's just like not as sweet tea, but hey, whatever. I've said, because I remember I asked for one and they just like went to a thing and got it and gave it to me. I was like, that's crazy. Y'all just made it pre because there was gonna be a bunch of people asking for it. Talking about those vanilla orchids, I read something a while back that I thought was cool. They're so bees where they're native, like the native bees that are around there. Mm-hmm. So I guess the seeds are not spread. They're not like they're too heavy to be spread by the wind and stuff. So like the bees will pick apart the fruit to use it for nest building or whatever, but will carry the seeds around. And that's one of their methods of distribution. That's a bee. That's a small little guy.
Yeah.
I don't think that happens. I don't think that happens to a lot. It's just kind of crazy how something that. And people have seen it, like they've observed it, and that's like, I don't know how you saw a bee carrying a seed around, but that's nuts.
Well, there's some big bees.
Yeah, there are some big bees.
When you have all these big holes out in your yard and little piles all the way down the driveway, those are bees. I mean, that's.
There are insects that carry a lot of things from point A to point B. There's nematodes that could be a problem with trees. There's one that affects pine trees mostly in Louisiana. Louisiana is where they have the biggest problem with it. And another one that affects um, coconut palms in South Florida and other areas where they have coconut palms. And it's a nematode, and it's carried around by a beetle, by a great big fat bark beetle that moves them around. So it'll leave one tree, and the nematodes will jump on its legs. It flies to another tree that is healthy and doesn't have any problems and drills into it, and the nematodes hop off, and now they have a new host.
Wow,
So yeah,
that's crazy.
there's niche insects that carry other things all over the place. Very interesting.
It's fortunate that so few insects are an actual problem because there's a lot of insects out there.
Yeah.
There really is.
I remember seeing something that's like by weight, like ant the amount of ants versus the amount of humans, and that's by weight, not by number, is just so much higher. I saw a post that was like in every county in the country, the most common animal is an ant. It'll always be an ant within 300 feet of wherever you're standing in Florida or in the United States. The most common animal will always be an ant. There's just so
Here
many
in
ants.
Florida, they're closer than 300 feet.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying I'm just saying like you could say wherever you're standing, the closest, the most common animal in any radius around you is always an ant, which is nuts. There's so many ants.
I had a publication put out by the university. They were doing research on birds that were striking tall towers. So they had a 20-acre site in North Florida that had like a 1,700-foot tower on it, and birds would hit the guy wires, hit the tower when it was foggy, and they would go collect all these bodies, and they were keeping track of what kind of birds and so on. And one of the big problems they had were the ants uh, eating the birds before they got to them. So they decided to clear all the ants out of this tract, 20 acres. They ran the research for about 5 years. They had a guy working weekly for 5 years. And when they got done, they feel like they had reduced the ant population by less than 30%. So
They're tough to get rid of.
as fast as they could get rid of a colony, another colony would pop up just beside it. And so they ended up they gave up on chasing off ants. So
I think the number that researchers have came to is like 20 quadrillion, and I don't even know how many zeros that is. It's a lot.
But the good news is most of the ants outside are harmless. I think a lot of homeowners and residents will see ants in their yard and just assume that it's fire ants or trying to get into their house or damaging their house. The most ants that are outdoors are harmless in the sense that they won't injure you, and they're not trying to damage your house or cause any kind of property loss. They're a very important part of the natural ecosystem. They help to recycle things, like Bernie said, with deceased birds. They can provide a lot of insect pest control. They'll crawl up onto your plants that you're trying to grow and gobble up a lot of pest insects that are on there. They found, and we do have a problem here in Hernando County with the Bernie, what's the name of the ants that you end up with just ungodly amounts of them, huge amounts? Not acrobat ants. I'll have to look that up. But they found that when these ants come, they will actually push the fire ants out of an area. So they replace the fire ants. So maybe you thought that your problem was fire ants, and now another invasive ant will come along and push the fire ants out so that you don't have a huge problem with them anymore. But most of them are harmless and not going to damage people. No, they're not pharaoh ants. Okay, now I'm going to have to look it up.
A lot of ants out there. I'm surprised nobody's wanted to join us. Are we that bad a group that you don't want to be associated with? Maybe they're smarter than I give them credit for.
Everybody's afraid to. They think that the camera's going to make them look bad. And
Well, it does. I look like Tom Hanks if I don't have a camera on me.
okay, the name of the ant, I'm sitting here looking up all the different invasive ants, and oh my gosh, we have a lot of them here in Florida. Lots and lots of different species of ants here. So don't think that they're all the same. Crazy ants. They used to be called the Caribbean crazy ant, and now it's tawny crazy ant.
Dude, I would not want to get bit by a Caribbean crazy ant. That sounds terrible.
They're populate because they have multiple queens. They'll make multiple nests. You will end up with just ridiculous numbers of them if you're unfortunate enough to have them in your yard. And we have a little area in Hernando County where I know that they're out and about. People will call like the exterminator. They come out and they spray. A couple hours later, there's even more ants back than what they sprayed and killed. The numbers are just amazing. You have to work with your neighbors to eliminate them. You don't eliminate them, you control them.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to work with neighbors to control them in the neighborhood. Because they'll go out any brush pile, any junked stuff that you might have in your yard. They love those places for making nests. And Teresa went ahead and put a link up to tawny crazy ants. They used to be called Caribbean crazy ants. Now they're tawny crazy ants. So they're one of the problem ones. But not all ants are a problem. So, hey, anybody has any questions? This is a quiet group day. It must be because it's leap day.
Yeah, a full moon or something, maybe.
It was a
I
full
don't know
moon
the
a few
phase.
days ago.
Oh, well, then we're a little bit past it. No excuses. There's a term, I do not remember it from my entomology class. For ants, I think it's any colony ant that has more than one queen in the colony, but I don't remember. I can't remember what it is, and it's like I'm racking my brain trying to think. I'm just gonna look it up. But polygynous. It's polygynous. And that means that they have multiple queens per. So I think pharaoh ants are like that too.
Yeah, and I've had, I believe, pharaoh ants and ghost ants in the house before. Because they're so small, they'll just get through the tiniest little crack in the wall or around sockets or wires or whatever, find their way in. They're very easy to control. Bernie, what's the liquid?
Pheromone trail. Oh,
Taro. Ant control works really well on the little ants that get into your house because taro is baited with sugar, and that's what those ants are looking for. They're looking for sugary, sweet stuff.
They make a little pheromone trail, and if you don't get rid of the pheromone trail, you see them moving along in a line. When you get rid of the ants, you also want to get rid of that trail because the ants will continue to follow that trail as long as it exists. So.
Those pheromones are oily too, so you gotta I use soap, like mop the floor. I think is the best way to get rid of them.
Bernie, we have a question for you here. Somebody's asking, how do I lower the pH for Ixora plants quickly? They have not bloomed in 3 years, and I'm realizing the pH might be the problem. Thanks.
Well, that might be, but there's some other problems that Ixora has. Too low of phosphorus. So the easiest way to lower the pH is to use a sulfur or a sulfur compound. You can use ammonium sulfate as fertilizer, or you can use elemental sulfur. Elemental sulfur will lower it. But it's not really quick. The problem is the elemental sulfur has to be oxidized, turned into an acid, and then into the ground. So ammonium sulfate is probably as fast as elemental sulfur. But I would also check, if you want to go to the trouble of doing a soil test and see if you're short on phosphorus. There's some products called bloom busters that oftentimes will kickstart plants into blooming. The question is, did these things bloom for years and then stop blooming, or did they never bloom? And if they bloomed for years and stopped, then probably sulfur will help. And if they've never done well, then I'd use one of the bloom buster type fertilizers and see what happens.
And if they're growing outside in the ground, you probably want to get a soil test, which will tell you the pH and whether it's a problem or not. Because Ixoras do need somewhat acidic soil. So if the pH is way too high, they probably don't flower because of that.
Optimum pH for Ixora is about 5.5. They stop blooming reliably once you get above 6.5. But they should bloom. The blooms get kind of crappy, but they should take off and go even with slightly high pH. But if you have a pH of probably 7.8 to 8, that's not a good plant to even have in that location.
You're never going to get the pH down from that high for long term.
About one number is as far as you can go with pH.
Yeah.
If you're 6.5, you can go to 5.5. If you're 7.5, you can go to 6.5. Well, 6.5 is kind of the limit for Ixora.
But what you could do, if you've realized that your soil is just not appropriate for Ixoras and other low pH plants, try growing them in a container. If you mix in some peat moss, which is naturally acidic, the soil in your container can be the right pH, and you can grow Ixoras in containers, and they should do very well.
One thing about peat moss is that if it dries out, it is really difficult to re-wet. So if you use peat moss, don't let it dry out. And if it does dry out, realize that you're going to have to really soak it to get it to absorb water again. Never bloomed, bought them 3 years ago. It's very possible. I assume they're in the ground. It's very possible pH is way too high. Most of Florida, I'm not the state, most of our county is in the 7 pH range, 7 to 7.5. I had one this morning that was 5.5, which is pretty unusual. And the funny part about it is the people want to raise Ixora. So they want to do it commercially. Well, I couldn't believe it, but that is pretty much perfect. And the only their soil test came back. The only thing their soil really lacked was potassium. So I would I would say if you really should do a soil test, find out if it's possible, and if it's possible, then I'd use one of the bloom buster fertilizers, kick them.
Yeah, soil test and knowing your pH is going to tell you what plants are going to do the best in your yard and be the easiest to manage. And I mean, you could try growing things outside of that range, like by growing them in containers or whatever, but that way you know that they're going to be a lot more difficult, going to take a lot more management. So we have a question about those ant trails. How do you get them off of walks, like a sidewalk?
On dish
Then
soap.
with one of the ant killers, and then that pretty
Oh,
much
wow.
eliminates the trail.
Yeah,
Raid
and
or
don't,
black flag or one of those. If you go over the trail, it does something to the pheromones. They disappear.
yeah, and don't spend your whole life trying to eradicate ants from your property, because it's probably not going to happen or not be successful for very long. You can't sanitize the great outdoors. There's ants out there, and there's always going to be ants out there. And Russian sage, what would be the correct pH balance and fertilizer? Most herbs take the same general pH as vegetables, which is about 6.5, neutral to maybe just ever so slightly acidic side of neutral. So a pH of 6.5 is good for growing a wide range of different plants. And herbs just need very light fertilization. You could use the 666 or 10-10-10, or if you're growing it in a container or you have just a little patch, a liquid Miracle Grow or Peter's Professional type fertilizer would work well too. They don't need a lot of fertilizer, so you don't want to overwhelm them with too much or too regular fertilizer.
One of the problems with fertilizer in potted plants is that it builds up the salt level in the soil, and the soil eventually becomes toxic. So if you have potted plants that you have been fertilizing over a long period of time, it makes sense to rinse the plant, to put it in the sink someplace, put some water in, run a tremendous amount of water through the thing, let it dry out pretty much, and go back to your original control. But to continue fertilizing a potted plant ends up damaging the plant. You almost always end up with real high salt, not sodium salt, not the sea salt type thing, but the chemical compounds that are known as salt.
So that Ixora is in soil that's about 7 to 7.5.
That's too high.
That's
You
too
can
high.
you can get it down to 6.5 using elemental sulfur. It'll take a while. It'll take probably 6 months to drop it a half pH. It'll take it a year to get down 1. And if you just use a small amount of elemental sulfur, I'd say put it down every 6 months. And you're going to have to do that forever. That's one of the problems with deciding that's what you want to do is that you can force it down, but you can't hold it down. It's not going to stay there unless you keep doing the same thing over and over. So
soil's always going to drift back to whatever it was originally and naturally. And where can I purchase fruit trees such as chaya, cassava, katuk that are organic? Is there someplace close by? No. If you're talking about Hernando County, no. Nobody around here that I know of, because those are some I'm familiar with all of them, but they're all very unusual, different tropical plants, food plants. Cassava grows really well here during the summer, also known as yucca. Chaya, kind of familiar with it. There are a lot of different tropical fruit trees. The best place for you to look for those things, especially if you're wanting them certified organic, is look online and have them shipped to you. Always deal with legitimate companies, and you're going to find by far the greatest variety there. A lot of those unusual specialty things you're really never going to find at a big box store or Sam's or Costco or anything like that.
A couple of places that I shouldn't recommend, but might, would be the University of South Florida plant sale
Mm-hmm.
and the uh, Ocala Master Gardeners. The Marion County Extension Office has an annual plant sale with a tremendous number of very strange things. So,
Yes, because they have a huge number of vendors there. And if there's a vendor anywhere near Marion County that raises those things, they're probably going to be there selling them. And that would include like avocado, kiwi. Most kiwis don't do well here in Central Florida. Pineapple, guava, that can do well here. Avocados tend to not do well in Hernando County because they tend to get damaged every year in freezes. So even the cold tolerant varieties, maybe they'll work out. I do know a few people who grow avocados very successfully, but for most people, it doesn't work out well. So just giving you a little warning there, a little heads up.
yeah, all those plants are available, both those plant sales. USF has, I believe, 2 plant sales. One that's primarily landscape plants, and one that has a tremendous number of food type plants. And the Marion County Extension Office, their plant sale is spread out over probably 4 or 5 acres. It's big. It's extremely big. So those are the kind of things where you find those plants. You go to a nursery and they don't really make a living selling odd plants. Nobody's going to buy very many of them, and it's just not the place that's not making them any money, and they generally don't do it. So you need somebody that specializes in the non-common plants, and that's where you go to find them. Yeah, if you're farther south, the place like Marie Selby has an annual plant sale, and that's great if you're Sarasota South. But those plants that you would buy at that sale aren't going to do you any good here. And same way, there's a couple of really big nurseries north that have are big gardens north that have sales, and if you go really far out of your community, you're going to find that the things being sold are more for the environment out of your community. If you see an ad for a plant in Miami, be very suspicious that it's not going to work here. I don't say don't plant it. If you really want one and there's a 20% chance, this may be the only chance you're going to have. But if it's planted that is relatively expensive and you can buy it from somebody here or you can buy it from somebody there, you want plants that are being sold in the area you're in, and you want them being sold by people that are going to be there for the long haul, and knowledgeable plant people. The big box stores may have one. There's nobody there that knows anything about it. Probably isn't going to survive, and you're going to be upset. So just support your local nurseries, and when you're buying exotic plants, buy them as close to home as you can. Do not get one of these seed catalogs from Michigan and look in there. Oh, here is a pear tree that will do great in Area 9. And so I'm not mentioning any names, but this jerk I know, like me, went and bought a whole bunch of pear trees because he liked pears, and he planted them. And you know what? One, they weren't nematode resistant, and second, they weren't going to do anything here anyway if they had been. So I got to watch them die. I was out a lot of money. And the truth is, those plants should not have been sold in Florida. And
Yeah.
And the man in Michigan, I'm sure they're a major place. They had good intentions, and under some conditions, the plant might have done well. It might have done fantastic in California Zone 9, but it wouldn't do well in Florida Zone 9, and it wouldn't do well any place there were nematodes. And I live on an old orange grove, and the nematode load is extremely high in my soil. Well, now that I know that, it's a little too late. They're not going to give me my money back, and those plants, one of the 6 produced a pear. Wasn't edible, but it was a pear. So, on the other hand, I learned a lot. So, if you want education, go ahead. If you want a plant, don't do it. Frog has started eating your head.
Oh yeah, he's.
I like it.
Here, I'm
Come on,
just sending
somebody
myself.
join us. We really are not all that nasty.
I like to think we're pretty nice.
So, would it be safe purchasing plants from a nursery in Tampa? Probably. If you were to go down to, let's say, Fort Myers, and you're loading up the car with different tropical fruit plants, many of them would grow well here also, but you will have to remember and make arrangements for cold protection for many of them, because it doesn't. How many freezes and frosts do you think they get in Fort Myers? They generally don't. So here, we really didn't get any bad freezes this year. It got really, really close a lot of mornings. I don't think I've really suffered any, cold damage worth mentioning, really. My lemongrass is still green. The bananas look kind of ratty, but they're not frozen. They're not all brown like they usually are. But it happens. This is Hernando County. We get freezes and frosts here. So you go too far south, those plants aren't going to do well here. You go way too far north, you go up to the Panhandle and start shopping for varieties of peaches that grow well in Georgia, because you like Georgia peaches. Those varieties don't do well here. It gets too hot here. So stick not too far. I think Tampa would be okay, don't you, Brian?
The thing about Tampa is they're a transition spot. From Tampa south, you can plant some tropicals, and from Tampa north, you can plant some things that do very well. So it would depend on the plant. Most of the things if you wanted to buy a tropical that had an opportunity to survive in our area, Tampa would be a great place to buy it. That would be probably as far north as you would find these plants that are still capable of growing a little farther north. But there again, you would, if you're buying a pure tropical, something that can't withstand a freeze, it doesn't make any difference where you buy that. It's not going to survive here. So,
unless you have a greenhouse, you're growing things indoors, you have a way of heating it. I mean, there are ways of doing it. We're just talking like if you plant it out in your backyard or front yard, it gets a little too cold here.
If you wanted to grow key lime and you were going to put it in a pot and protect it, Tampa would be a great place to buy it, because Tampa would be a place probably selling key limes. There is a market south of Tampa for that particular product. If you go to a nursery here, you probably aren't going to find a key lime, because they have a problem. If they sit there in the winter, they're going to freeze and die. So, yeah, I would say if I was buying plants that I knew shouldn't have planted here, Tampa would be a great place to buy them. But if you're buying plants that you really know that you want to hang on to, then buy them here. Or actually, even Orlando. Orlando's warmer than we are. Orlando and
Tiny
Tampa
bit.
are pretty close together.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of sad. We are at the really weird spot. We're too cold for the southern plants, and we're too hot and humid for the northern plants. So uh, we're supposed to be zone 9, but we're really zone 10 in the winter, and we're zone 8 in the summer. So, and they call that 9 then. So you're on a transition when you're in Hernando County.
And like we've mentioned many, many times before, you have to be on the lookout for plants that are being sold here that maybe you love, maybe you had in your yard up north and you just absolutely love them and you want to grow them down here. Don't assume just because you can find them in a local store, it's the kind of thing that's appropriate for here. So here I got a picture. She hates me when I do this, but I got a picture of my lovely wife here at a store we were at not too long ago, holding some beautiful bulbs from Nilla or Nika blue hydrangea and common purple lilac. And Bernie, how well do you think they're going to do here in Hernando County?
Well, about a snowball's chance in wherever it is, it's really sad. But you have to realize that the store has no conscience. The store has product to sell,
Mm-hmm.
and people want that product. And if the store doesn't offer it to you, you will go to another store and buy it. And they understand that their business is business. Their business isn't plants. And uh, you know, you sell what people want because that's what you have to have to survive.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's incumbent upon the people to understand that, if you buy this product, this is something that you're going to have to build a special building, air conditioned in the summer, and heat it correctly in the winter and let it freeze, and maybe put enough air conditioning in that you can put some frost in there. All these things that it's your responsibility to provide the environment. It's not God's environment here in Florida. It's your responsibility. So if you spend a lot of money on a plant, and I push this all the time, make sure you understand that plant first. Don't ever spend more than you can afford to throw away. It's like gambling. If you go to the plant store and you buy a plant and you don't know anything about it, it's like going to Las Vegas and putting your $20 on red. If you got $20 to lose, if black shows up, buy it. Not a big deal. But if it's a $100 plant, or that's your last $20, you're making a big mistake. Always know what the plant is. Don't impulse buy. If it's really beautiful and they've only got one, and you really have to have that plant, assume that if you spend the money, it's not going to stay beautiful. Now, if under that assumption you still want it, that's fine. But if you plan on taking it home and keeping this plant for a long time, go home, find out about the plant, and then go back and buy it. And if it's gone, that's too bad. A heartache, but education's the key to this thing. And the beautiful part about it is the people that we talk to, this program reaches, are the educated ones, so they understand all that, and they know where I'm coming from. But the poor people that move here from up north and don't understand get very confused when they go to a store that has all these beautiful plants. The assumption is all these beautiful plants will do here. will do fine here, and they won't. And finding out what does and what doesn't uh, is either a very expensive proposition or a challenging educational experience.
Well, it looks like it's about that time for us to wrap it up. So let
Good
me leave
grief.
you with a final thought that if you're one of those unfortunate people who hangs out in Facebook gardening groups too much and gets all your information from there, maybe it's going to be good information. There's a lot of people on there that know what they're doing. Maybe it's not so good. Maybe you're going to walk away a little bit confused. If you follow us, you're going to get good information. And if you want an idea of what kind of landscape plants are going to do well here in Florida, let me hold this up. We have a book that we will give you for free if you come by our office. If you go by and get in touch with Colby, he has them free also. We have them free at our Master Gardener Nursery. And this is a picture book with all kinds of different plants that are going to do well here in Florida. Very careful, you check each one because it's going to tell you what zones it grows in. So this includes South Florida, Central Florida, North Florida. You want to make if you live in Central Florida, you want to make sure what you're putting on your shopping list is perfect for Central Florida, but that gets you in the right neighborhood. So
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
not buying hydrangeas and lilacs that are almost definitely not going to do well. These will all potentially do very, very well. And then with a little bit more fine tuning, sun, shade, acidic soil, alkaline soil, whatever it might be, what kind of fertilizer do I give it? Do I water it a lot or not so much? Once you understand all those things, your chances of success go way, way, way up. And your chances of having a beautiful landscape go way up also.
The that plant guide is also available to you for free online um, from the University of Florida. They have an app. I keep it on my phone right here, and it's the same information. You can even filter it by the plant type, plant shape, flower color, sunshade, and if it's native or not. I think that it is a wonderful resource. It's even handy for me when I am trying to suggest something to someone. Maybe I don't know. I kind of put in their parameters they're looking for, and I'll find something there. So it's a super good resource, and you can find that on the Florida Friendly Landscaping website under IFAS. I'm sure that Teresa will put a link up. It's also in that's on my link tree as well.
Okay, so we have a question from Rhonda about what's the address for our office. It is 16110 Aviation Loop Drive in Brooksville, Florida. We are right at the front edge of the Brooksville Airport, if you're familiar with that, alongside of Spring Hill Drive. And we are right next door to the post office. But if you didn't write any of that down, you're like, I'm not familiar with that area, there's our phone number. Just give us a call. Oh, Teresa even beat me to it and put the address in. So Teresa has it in the comments here, and there's our phone number. And Rhonda got that one way or the other. And one last quick question here from Linda. Can I plant gardenias and what location would be appropriate? Easy one to answer. You can grow gardenias. You want to grow them in a shady location or partly sunny, like where you would do azaleas or other non-full sun plants. Gardenias need acidic soil. So get a soil test done first. If the soil in your yard is, let's say 7.5, I've seen as high as 8.5, gardenias are never going to do well in the native soil. You could grow gardenias in a really large container and make sure the soil is acidic, and that way, gardenias and containers work very well too.
Be sure you use gardenia azalea fertilizer. It's acid forming.
Yes.
That's the link to the apps. I put that there. So that's where the plant guide, there's even like fertilizer ordinance, toxic plants, butterfly gardening, bee gardening, whole lot of good stuff there.
So that's a very good link to go and visit. And Linda, you are very welcome. And it looks like it's about that time, guys. So let me turn off some of these banners. And just very quickly, let me go ahead and add my email. If anybody has any follow-up questions, wants to get in touch with me, email is by far the best way to get in touch with me. And Colby has an email also, but even more importantly, he has a link tree with all the information to, their website and
social media,
upcoming classes, Facebook, everything else is all right there.
That's the best place to get a hold of me, is by going on the social media and stuff. I'll answer an email if you send it to me, but it rings my phone when I get a Facebook message. So please feel free to reach out should you need anything.
Yeah, same here. And I guess it's kind of sad, but I guess we're all tied to these things nowadays. And yeah. I can respond to emails very, very easily as a general rule. If you ever try figuring that you'll just swing by the office and catch me here in person, you might, but there's a very good chance that you won't. So, because I'm in and out all the time. And here, Teresa put up another link to.
You can find some more of my program information
program
right there on the county website as well.
Okay, well, hey everybody, thank you so much. Hope you had a really good leap day today and learned something. We should be back again next week. Am I going to be here? Ooh, I won't be here next week, guys. So y'all need to fill in for me. I have to go to Lake County. So
yeah, I'll probably be here as of now.
What?
I can do it, but not.
I'll probably be here as of now. I don't have anything that I see right now.
Okay, so somebody will probably be here next week. We'll have to work that out for sure. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. If you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to get in touch with us. And other than that, hopefully we'll see you here again next week. Until then, everybody have a great week. Thanks. Bye.